HBCU pride. I believe in HBCU culture and I believe in HBCU sports. This is what our show is about. HBCU pride with Tim McCain and Derek Hall. You're listening to Believe in HBCUs.
I believe.
With Tim McCain and Derek Hall. Today we have a very, very special guest. This is our first guest on Believe in HBCU podcast. We are here with esteemed reporter, esteemed face of HBCU sports reporting, Donal Ware from Boxtorow syndicated sports show. Mr. Ware, how you doing today, sir?
I'm great. I'm doing well, guys. I appreciate you guys. Really appreciate you guys having me on.
Man, the pleasure is ours.
Yeah, the pleasure is ours.
So I want to get right into it. What led you to become a sports reporter, and what led you to be interested in reporting on HBCU sports?
Yeah, so I appreciate that question. So, I grew up in the Washington area, big Washington football team fan, everything Washington Bullets at the time, Capitals, Orioles. There was no national. So I was always a sports guy. And, when I think about it, when I was, maybe 7th or 8th grade, I used to listen to an all news station when I got up, and I used to write these sports reports and give them to my friends. So I think that's where it first started. I listened to a sports talk show called Sports Call with Ken Beatrice. It was on WMAL. But when I used to go to bed, I would listen to either Bullets games, Capitals games, and then Larry King. So Larry King had a syndicated radio show. I think a lot of people know Larry King from CNN, but Larry King was a syndicated radio guy back in the day. And so I just had an interest in radio and sports. And so once I got to college at Morgan State, I became the sports editor of the Morgan State Spokesman. And really, to be honest with you, just went from there. Loved reporting not only on Morgan, but HBCU. That's really where my HBCU reporting started as a student, the sports editor at the Spokesman of Morgan State University.
Wow.
That's amazing. So, I want to say, I see you got a lot of Shaw stuff back there. I'm going to let you slide today. That's always going to be a rivalry and whatnot. So the biggest thing I know today's news is about players joining HBCUs. Do you think it's a good thing? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, I think, especially when you saw Makir Maker make his announcement that he was ultimately going to Howard, has ultimately signed, from my understanding anyway, that national letter of intent. I think that was the big thing. Until you sign it, it could go either way. Plus, he had NBA aspirations, right? So he signed it. He's enrolled. He's done a video to say that I'm a Howard student. He's enrolled. So I think that will open up a lot more avenues for other players like him, 4-star, 5-star recruits to sort of come in. I mean, but if you think about Howard, I mean, you go back to, RJ Cole, who's left Howard now to go to and transfer to UConn, was a kid out of New Jersey going back to 2016. He was a 3-star kid that came to Howard. So I think we're going to see it more now because of where we are with the whole social injustice movement, which I think is great. And, it's interesting. It's almost like, and I don't want to be critical, but it's like these young people they see what's going on, but somehow the parents of the young people missed it along the way. And I'm a parent of it. And I'm a parent of a young person. I've always encouraged my children, obviously with HBCUs, but the young people are seeing it for themselves. They don't need anybody to tell them what is going on. So I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing. And I think we're going to see a lot more players, 5-star, 4-star, et cetera, come to HBCUs.
So that kind of leads to another question. Oh, you going to say something there?
Yeah, I got a second part, my back then. So because I was telling, me and Tim had a conversation like, it's great, but do you think schools like a Duke will want to lose to a Howard? I don't think schools like that want to lose to Howard or even schedule them to put them on the schedule to play them. Because with basketball, 9 times out of 10, you need exposure. Like football, they're going to find you. If you dominate any league, they're going to find you in football. Basketball, it's a little bit different. I feel like, they need to see you see you put up numbers. They want to see your three-pointers, your dunks. Do you think those Division I schools will support and add Howard to their schedule?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, to your point, so you don't want to lose, if you're a Duke, but I know what you're saying, because we're in the triangle, so Duke is that school. I think Coach K, and I know you're using Duke as an example. I think Coach K is one that would do it anyway. But to your point about a bigger school wanting to schedule a Howard, I mean, I think you still will. I think that there needs to be enough of these players that commit to these schools. And then the other thing is, a lot of these players could be one and done type of players. So can you really start to build a program behind these type of players? I think that's something that isn't really being talked about, that we probably need to have that conversation.
I agree. So that kind of leads to my other question, which, what do you think HBCUs, reporters, and just the community needs to do to educate, to inspire student athletes to be a part of HBCUs and not necessarily just join for 1 year, like what you were saying, maybe for like 2 or 3 years to help build the program?
Yeah, I think that's where you need more of the guys, even if you're 4 or 5 star, that's not a one and done. But I think reporters like yourselves, like others, just need to report. I think we need to remind people that the greatest players that ever played the respective sports, most notably football, went to HBCU, and we talk about social justice. We're forced to go to HBCUs. I mean, Alabama wasn't having it. The schools in the ACC, SEC weren't having it. Yeah, the Big Ten was a lot better, and the schools up north were a lot better. But I think those stories need to be told more, that we come from royalty as HBCU people, some of the greatest players. And 2, remember, I mean, I'm all about moving forward, but like, we can't forget that we weren't included at those respective schools. And I think that we as reporters need to continue to tell those kind of stories.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more.
Go ahead, John.
So my next question is, like, you've been doing this, you've been a part of Boxtorow since 2005. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
So what were some of the lessons that you learned from 2005 to 2020 when it comes to sports reporting?
Wow. One of the things I think is just to sort of get better at your craft. I think even when I started, so when I started Boxtorow, again, I mentioned to you guys, I was a huge sports fan. I didn't have a lot of sports talk experience. I had at that time some play-by-play experience, but not a lot of sports talk experience. So I would listen to shows to kind of I would listen to Mike and Mike, right? I would listen to, Jim Rome and Tony Kornheiser, and try to sort of get a sense for how they did things, not to take their style, but to sort of get a sense of how they sort of did what they do. So I think that's one of the things. You got to get better at your craft. You got to be factual. I think I don't like to get into a lot of hearsay and all that. If I hear something, I want to confirm it before I report it. That's just me. I think that's something that's super important. That's something that, we've tried to do here at Boxtorow for quite some time. So I think those are a couple of things that just kind of jump out immediately.
I agree. There's one thing that I've noticed, doing sports reporting for the past 2 years. It's like reporting stuff that athletes want to tell out, and also knowing information that also they'll just tell you, but you don't put out.
Right.
That, like, that confidentiality. Like, a lot of people in today's society, they might just want to push everything out, and they don't necessarily care. Like, do you ever feel like as a reporter, like, have you ever crossed that line, or would you advise somebody, hey, look, you shouldn't do this? I'm
going to be honest. In all the years that somebody told me something in confidence, I never put it out publicly. I mean, I don't remember that I have. I don't think I have. And I don't believe in doing I believe if somebody tells you something in confidence, then it should be. Now, if they say you can, I want that out there, or can you, maybe, put it out there softly, or whatever the case may be, I think that's a different scenario. But if somebody tells you something in confidence, it's more for your or situational awareness if you, and then when it comes out, maybe that person you'll be the first person that person talks with publicly about it. And you have to have that trust with student athletes, with coaches, administrators, et cetera. And if you have that trust, they're going to come to you with some stuff. And then when they're ready to talk about it, you may be the first one they talk with about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you've had, I was reading some of your articles, including the one on Maker, but also I found interesting, you have your own All-American team, Boxtorow AllAmerican. So my question to you is, who are some of the best Boxtorow All-American players that you've ever reported on and named?
Wow.
You could have like 5. Let's say 3 to 5.
Okay, so Darius Leonard, I mean, my goodness, I mean, is he
cute?
Right? Like, is he? I mean, arguably the best linebacker in the league. He was a 2-time defensive player of the Boxtorow, Willie Davis Boxtorow Player of the Year. Javon Hargrave came right behind him, and also at South Carolina State. He was 2-time Boxtorow Defensive Player of the Year. Tariq Cohen obviously was really, really good. I'll tell you, and that's 3. I'm going to tell you someone I think we missed out on, but I think it's because we came out with the All-American team the year after he left. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie was like really, really good at Tennessee State. 1st-round pick. I guess he's still in the left. I don't know if he's a free agent. He's still,
I think he retired or free agent. I don't think he's on the team currently.
Right.
He was nice.
He was nice. So, he was a guy that I remember quite well. I'll tell you another guy I remember quite well, Jacoby Jones, who was out of Lane. Now, you're talking about a guy that came out of a Division II program, ultimately was drafted by the Houston Texans, and then had that great play in the Super Bowl in 2012 when the Ravens won. He should have been the MVP that year. He had the kickoff return for the touchdown to start the second half, and then that 70-yard catch. Those were 2 big plays. So those are at least 4 of the guys I remember, and then one of the guys we missed on. And again, I can't remember if it was. Yeah, it was DRC. I can't remember. It may have been the year before we started the All-American. And we have voters that actually vote on the All-American team.
Wow, that's what's up. That's amazing. So, my one of my last questions is, what advice would you give to young reporters who want to follow your familiar footsteps? Somebody who was kind of like independent. I respect the way you've kind of done this. Being a Facebook friend of yours and just studying it. I kind of want to move similar to how you move. Me and Derek probably similar to this. What advice would you have to someone like us or to anyone else who wants to be you in the future?
Yeah, I mean, keep at it. Don't ever let anybody tell you can't. I mean, I've told the story that we started Boxtorow. We were paying for airtime. Had 5 or 6 stations across the country. I was driving to Baltimore from 3 of the first 4 weeks to host it. Ran out of money. Had to come back to Raleigh. Had 1 station carrying the program, but from there built it back up and built. And like you guys, I have a passion for HBCUs and HBCU sports. And even the question you asked me earlier, even with those shows that I really admired, they weren't talking about HBCUs and HBCU sports, which is why we started Boxtorow. So I would say continue to stay on your grind. Never let anybody tell you no. And, really have either a mentor or someone you can really talk to about how this works. If you guys remember the 15-year anniversary, Kevin Frazier came on. When I was a student at Morgan, he was a Morgan alum. I called him out of the blue and said, hey, Kevin, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. And he gave me a lot of advice. We're still friends to this day in excess of 20 years later. So you should also have somebody that you can talk with that has been where you're trying to go.
Yes, sir.
Right. So I see that you've done a lot of high profile interviews. I see you doing with Jerry Rice and Jim Brown. How was that like? I'm assuming, were you in art interviewing those guys?
Yeah, I particularly Jim Brown, because Jim Brown was earlier in our infancy, maybe 4 years in. So, I was nervous, and I listened back to some of those old shows. Gosh, they were awful. I mean, but the thing about it, you got to start somewhere. Like you got to start somewhere and continue to build it, right? So, but the one thing I was proud of, I asked Jim Brown about the photo of all the black athletes, the great black athletes at that time. And I asked him what it was like at that time. He gave me an answer, and then he ended by saying, I'm glad you brought that particular incident to light. And that made me feel great. The Jerry Rice, that was 2013. So I was a little bit, more into it. So I wasn't as nervous, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's still Jerry Rice.
So,
yeah, like, I get nervous sometimes with anybody, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I am so honored when we can ask for guests to come on the show, no matter who it is. It just so happens that some of them are more high profile than others, but all of the guests that we have on Boxtorow are important to me.
Wow.
Right. So I want to take it to a moment in time that we're in now. I want to get your thoughts on the Bucks today boycotting Game 5. Even though I think it fits the time. Like, I wasn't shocked that the Bucks boycotted today, but I understood.
Right.
Like, I understood, like, yo, this, especially because it's in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, it's on their turf and grass. I just want your thoughts on that.
No, I think, listen, before the NBA players came into the bubble, a lot of them had concerns about would the social justice message be lost?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say it was in the NBA, but if you think about it, when you watch those games NBA every day, the Black Lives Matter that's on the court and the names on the back of the jerseys, it's just a regular thing. Like you're used to it. And so when this incident came about, unfortunately, George Floyd wasn't going to be the last one. Brother Blake ain't going to be the last one. You know what I mean? So we're going to have to continue to have these conversations. But I think the step that the Bucks took is like, okay, the influence that these owners have, that the NBA has, they need to now talk to Congress people and people that can make these decisions for police reform. And so I'm all for it. I'm interested to see what's going to happen a little bit later on this evening, and then sort of moving forward with these games.
I'm interested too. The first thing that I thought about it, right? Like, yo, the players can miss out on their money. They can understood, but if I'm the owner and I want change to happen, I would tell like Congress, like if change don't happen, I'll move my team to St. Louis, and I think that's a better way to really get people to understood and to stay like, yo, you messing up the money. Like, if I'm owner, I'll think about moving my team if something don't change.
No,
that'd be huge.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and that's the way you have to do it. Like, I think, generally speaking, the people that are in power that can make these changes may not necessarily care about the NBA, and then those of us that don't necessarily have per se the power to make those changes. But when you have the Bucks do what it did, and then the NBA ultimately co-signing and canceling the rest of the games, at least for tonight, that's big. But again, I think the higher ups, ownership, NBA, et cetera, need to have conversations with the people that can really start to make the changes.
I agree. Do you think then that what do you think about then players like setting up their own dollars to make up their own leagues? Like what do you think about that potentially?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me that. You got to pull some serious money together. But I think if and I don't know, like, I think money talks. Like, you got to be able to really be committed to doing that. Like, and everybody don't have deep pockets like that, and even those that have deep pockets may not want to do that. So, I'd be for it, but I don't know. You'd have to have a lot of people and a lot of money to make something like that happen, especially if you're trying to do it on the level of the NBA.
Yeah, that'd be tough. Like me and Tim had these conversations a lot. We had this conversation more back when the XFL was going. I said, yo, Tim, they're going to fail because it's not enough capital being put into that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Ultimately, they failed. I think, about The Rock buying it, people will support The Rock The Rock brand. So he might have a better chance of reviving that, but I think with other leagues that go against a conglomerate that's a billion-dollar business weekly, it's going to be 10 times as hard. Like, I don't think rich people, they will lose money, but they put a cap on how much money they will lose.
Right.
I agree. But there was a time in the NBA where there was an NBA and an ABA. You know, there was a time. So, I mean, there's a possibility where there could be another league, and there's a lot of millionaires that the NBA has made throughout the years, not just currently, but, you know, it could be some of the OGs.
Yeah.
Who could even put up money, you know?
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I think, and you guys are local, you know, you guys are local. So, I mean, even if you look at that, what was it, that football league that happened last spring, like the Hurricanes owner, he put some money up, but to your point, he capped it. He was like, this is how much I'm putting up. And if we don't do that,
true.
I'm out, you know, and he was out. So I think that's a good point, you know.
Yeah,
so true.
So what you think the NFL should do? Like, do you ever foresee the NFL putting a Black Lives Matter in the middle of that field for national TV?
I didn't. I hadn't before now, but boy, you guys know, you see the comments that Goodell has made more recently, specifically this week about Colin Kaepernick, and they should have listened more. He even talked about it a couple of months ago. He's starting to sort of make references to it. But I don't know, man, because I think the fan base of the National Football League and the fan base of the NBA is there's some crossover. Don't get me wrong, but it's different fan bases, and I don't see the National Football League got a whole lot of work to do. I mean, we got let's talk about Black leadership, general managers, ownership. Let's talk about coaches, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't see that they will, at least not anytime. I just don't see that they will anytime soon.
Yeah, you're spot on, especially when it comes to the coaches. Like, when you study it, you also notice how, like, they'll have, like, you know, defensive coaching positions for Black coaches, but not offensive. And most people hire offensive coaches, not defensive coaches.
Yeah.
But I think for NFL players at this moment, because it's a different, fans, they got different fans, they'll have to do more so of their work on the outside. They can't do more work on the inside. They got to do more so on the outside. But what would you say about that when it comes to NFL? Like, have you noticed that as a reporter, like, how the NFL, like, when it comes to lack of coaches, but when they do hire Black coaches, it's more on the defensive side of the football. But in the reality, they hire more offensive coaches.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, I think a prime example to your point is Eric Bieniemy. Like, he should be a head coach. Like, they won the Super Bowl last year, but he's not a head coach. Something's wrong. You know, something's wrong there. But look, I mean, I to be honest with you guys, I think part of the problem, and to your point about the defensive coaches and the coordinator positions, and yeah, there seems to be more Black coaches on the just defensive period. But I think it really starts at the FBS level. Like, we need more Black coaches at the FBS level. You know, I think if you have more coaches at the Black coaches at the FBS level, then you're going to have an opportunity to have more head coaches at the National Football League level. How many coaches this year were hired or in the last couple of years that were FBS head coaches? You know, I mean, so I think the NCAA is in the FBS is part of the problem also. But, you know, I would love to see more, to your point, more offensive coaches. And I think, at least from one example, the Eric Bieniemy situation is definitely a shame. And I don't know. I mean, I would assume he wanted to be a head coach. But the fact that he's not, if he did want to be, and I'm sure he did, is certainly a shame coming off a Super Bowl victory. That was a white coach. I mean, come on. He beat I mean, we've seen lesser guys that are head coaches than what Eric Bieniemy has been able to do as a coordinator.
Right, yeah, I agree. What's the Chicago coach who was in Eric Bieniemy? 1 year got a job. But also look at it like this. Eric Bieniemy should be a coach, but he could have been a coach and waiting in KC. So why give up a great job when they could be training you to be the head coach? And the reason I can coach too much longer,
Well, maybe. I
I
think,
don't know.
I see your point. I just think that, if I don't think he was presented an opportunity, to be honest with you. And I think if he were, you can leave and go somewhere else and come back. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't think Andy Reid is going anywhere in the I don't know, but I would say at least the next, I'm sure his staying in KC is tied to the quarterback's contract, right? So I think he's going to be here at least 5, 6 more years. But you can always leave and come back. And I think Eric Bieniemy would be an excellent head coach.
I think he would too. I actually wanted him for Carolina before we got Matt Rule. So
yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm not a Panthers fan, but obviously being here in the state, I keep up with them. We'll see how the Panthers do, man. Like, I don't like the way the whole Cam Newton situation went down.
I hated it. They did my dog so wrong.
Oh man, yeah. He almost didn't even have a job in the league, and now he's playing basically for peanuts.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
It is. It's really disrespectful what they're doing to Cam Newton. But hey, we'll see what happens with the Patriots. He might blow it up, and then you get that big money again.
He's gonna blow it up. He's gonna definitely blow it up. So let's take it back. I want to take it back to HBCU. I know we got on track, but we're gonna take it back to HBCU. Last week, me and Tim dropped our top 5 HBCU athletes. If you can give us top 5 HBCU athletes, who would that be? I think our consistent number 1 was Jay Rice. Number 2 is Walter Payton.
Yeah.
I think I had.
I like 1 and 2.
You had Deacon Jones. Did you have Deacon Jones at 3?
I had Deacon Jones 3.
I'd be with
maybe me and Joe Green 4 and Steve McNair 5.
Yeah, I like that. Like, I did a piece for USA Today. They asked me to rank the top 100 national football or really AFL and NFL players of all time that played at HBCU. So I think that was like my top 5. I think you got to have Sam Jones in there, that played with the Celtics. I mean, if you're talking about athletes, overall athletes.
Yeah.
But Sam Jones over Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Yeah, man, he won 10 championships. 10 championships. 10. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. I don't know. My preference would be, Earl was nasty.
Respect.
Don't get me wrong. And they won a national championship when he was at Winston, right? So, I think you got to give him some credence there. But, boy, when Sam Jones was playing back when it was North Carolina College for Negroes, that was some that was some serious ball. You could go either way there, but I like Sam Jones. In my top 5. Let's not forget about the track and Edwin Moses. Let's not forget about the track and field athletes that went to Morehouse. So that's a tough one. Like, it's so many. That's until you guys' point in the beginning. That's the thing, man. Like, so many. It's not just athletes. Greatness has come out of HBCUs in all parts of society.
Exactly. Well, Mr. Ware, we thank you very much for your time. We're just thankful for you to just drop your wisdom.
Your presence and drop that wisdom.
Well, look, like I said, guys, and you guys reached out to me, man. I was more than happy to do it. I appreciate you, thinking that we're trying to get some things done, and we are, and, been doing it a long time. And if I can help you guys, with what you're doing, if I can be any help, just please let me know.
Yes, sir. We definitely will. That is all for Believe in HBCUs.
We believe in HBCUs.
Peace, family.